Good morning and welcome to Whitney in the Wild, a jungle podcast brought to you by Liger Partners. I am Whitney Mendoza, managing partner with Liger Partners, and this morning I'm super excited because I am joined by Michelle Enjoli Beato. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's March.
Yes.
A better March than the last March.
Let's hope.
100%. We are proclaiming it like
Yes.
It's a done deal. I know it's only March 2nd, but
No,
it's fun.
definitely.
It's going to be a better March. So Michelle, you are founder of Connect, and I'm so like a fangirled a little bit because our backgrounds, I mean, we have a lot of similarities because you were in television and you've done marketing. I started in radio, but you've worked with companies like Univision, Telemundo, Mercedes-Benz. So tell us, because I read your story, and but I'd love for you to share how you moved from New York to Atlanta with Mercedes, but then you had this business idea. And the business idea really proved itself to you. And those were the best business ideas. It's like when you already had a thing and then people are preemptively asking for it. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So those are definitely the best ideas. So fast forward, it's now been almost 6 years since I've been here in Atlanta. And
Yes.
I was working for Mercedes-Benz, which is interesting because what a lot of people don't know, it's an automotive company. I was working at their headquarters in New Jersey, but I was actually first working for them doing television production, which is
Nice.
interesting because they actually had an in-house studio that developed a lot of
Okay.
their video.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how through a lot of connections, I landed there. And so about 5.5 years ago, they decided to move their headquarters to Atlanta, Georgia. And so with that was a tough decision because, in marketing, in the world of television production, you're right near New York City. Their headquarters was
Right.
actually right outside of New York City. There's tons and tons of opportunity. And so for me, it was a tough decision, but it was a hard decision to make. We moved down. And so with that came a new working environment that I think really, really changed the game for me and kind of sparked this idea of the journey that I'm now on, which is we became a very, very, diverse environment, both culturally, both generationally. And so having those conversations when I moved down here with a lot of new employees that had made the move with me, a lot of conversations kept coming up in terms of, how do you communicate now in an environment like this?
Right.
How do you communicate in a company that's now made up of, people that had just moved from the North, integrating with people from the South, you have different generations. So it was just something that naturally came out of a ton of coffee conversations that I would have with people.
Yeah. Well, it was a great segue because I was sharing before we went live that I titled this Life-Changing Coffee, How Conversations We Have Changed the Course That We're On, because I just felt like that kind of encapsulated everything that I felt like we were going to talk about. And we may both have pictures out online and profile somewhere with like coffee cups in our pictures. So that's how important coffee is. And where I'd love to take this is, I know we're having a lot of discussion around the new normal, which we've got to come up with a different word because I'm tired of that word. We alluded to the fact that we're in March again, like we've come full circle. But what I'm finding is, and I was even thinking about it this morning, is like we've got a lot of these virtual conferences that are going on, right? And I was thinking to myself, I was like, because I just came across one that I was super excited to attend, and it's like next Thursday. And I was like, awesome, my day is pretty free. I've got a couple of things that are going to happen like during the conference, but that's okay. I can bop out, go do that thing, and then come back to the conference.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, that's both a beautiful and an absolutely terrible thing. Because
I hear you.
if I was in person, I'd be able to dedicate my full attention to that conference, which is really where it should be, right? So yes, we're able to do more things now, but we're also able to do double things. We're like doing 2 and 3 things at the same time. And I feel even though we're able to possibly have more conversations because perhaps we're not traveling and things like that, I almost feel like we're a little bit more disconnected. Like it's really hard. It is really hard to connect with someone over Zoom. So how have you combated that and, kind of navigated these changes that we've had?
Definitely. I definitely hear you with that. It's interesting because, yeah, like you, I've attended a number of conferences and I've actually, keynoted a number of virtual conferences. And I think the ticket, for me has been having individual conversations over Zoom, because what happens is, and, in a lot of my research and some of the work that I'm doing now, there are people that naturally, are not very, open with others in professional settings. Now you're behind a camera or perhaps, on a call that, your video is off, and now you're going to naturally be able to fall back and not participate.
Yep.
And so I tell people it's interesting. I'm doing a project right now with some leaders of the importance of, one-on-ones and having that special time with people over video at least once a week. If you cannot meet with, a person who directly reports to you once a week, or someone that you work with once a week, one-on-one, then, you perhaps may be managing too many people. But yeah, that one-on-one time, because, being able to physically see someone and just ask normal questions, right? Because the other side of it is, I've been telling people now, that line, before I knew that there was a very fine line between your professional and your personal life, it seems like that line now is absolutely invisible, if non-existent.
Yes.
And I tell people, embrace that, because that allows you to build more human connections with the people that you work for. Ask people how they're doing, right? Ask about their family. Ask about potentially any specific hardship that they know that they might be experiencing, whether it's with a project, whether it's personally. But those are little moments that you can connect with people on a much greater level that, allow that connection to be a little bit more meaningful than a typical conversation you might have passing someone at work with coffee.
Yeah. I love that we got to meet one of our clients, 2 kids for the first time. He was, I guess it was, at home day, because a lot of schools are like kind of doing the mismatch between in school and then virtual.
Yes.
And so this happened to be virtual day, and the kids came in, and they were having like just as much fun as we were. Like they didn't even want to leave, but it was super cute that we were able to like meet them, and again just get like an extra glimpse and connection into that client's life. Okay, how about etiquette and boundaries? Even though, yes, we know, like speaking of the kids, there's going to be that moment where perhaps they're going to rush into the room, or the dog's going to start barking, because Amazon has an uncanny ability to deliver a package in the one Zoom call you've had that day, or whatever the case is. So like yesterday, and she's a good friend, so I felt comfortable, but I was kind of thinking of the other conversation she was going to have during the day, because she does financial planning.
Oh.
And so she was asking some very serious questions, but her internet kept being wonky. And so she's like, let me turn the video off and it'll get better. So I was talking to myself, sharing all this kind of deep private information. And like, I had already had a connection with her. So I was like, I was comfortable with it, but I thought, oh, this would be really hard if this was our first encounter. How do you navigate? Like, is it okay to say, I don't think this is working right now? Can you call me back when you have better connection? Like, what do we do there?
Yes, definitely. It's okay. I think especially the specific circumstance that you just described, you're sharing personal information, right? And that person that needs to receive and process that information, you need to feel comfortable. You need to trust them, right? And so I think that same situation applies in a lot of environments where, you want that trust. Like that's what's going to make that connection meaningful and valuable. So yeah, it's completely okay to be like, let's reschedule at a time that we can have this conversation face to face, because it is extremely important.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so you have a TED Talk coming up.
Yes.
This is going to be in Southampton in England in 2021, sometime this year.
Yes.
And this is their first TEDx in Southampton, yes?
Yes, it is.
So what will you be speaking about?
So the title of my talk is The Most Important Connection to Make for Success.
Nice.
And it's interesting because without giving away what it is and the bulk of my talk, it's just centered around, also what success really means and how to define that, because the word is used a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that back to the conversation we're having earlier about how life has changed, priorities have changed, people's, dreams might have changed in the interim, right, of what they deem to be important. So success is really unique to every individual. So it's going to center around, how do you define it and how do you get
I love
there?
that.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, what does it take to prepare for a TED Talk?
Oh boy.
Because you've got a book coming out too.
Yeah. So I'm actually working on a book that we're trying to figure out too, when's the best time to release it, because I'll tell you, in the midst of writing it, which I started over a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's pivoted in so many different directions because of so many ideas. So I'm in the midst of trying to maybe perhaps, someone actually told me the other day, this could be like 3 different books because it just has so many ideas. So I'm still in that planning stages of, pivoting it. But yes, TEDx. To prepare for a TEDx, it's interesting because I do a lot of training, and while I coach others and train others on how to connect for professional development, I also am a student. And so a lot of the people that I, have taken their courses and are mentored by, one important thing that stuck out, which I think that for anyone in any profession that has to communicate with people, is to think about, this is not about you. It's about the other person, right? The value that you're providing. What's the gift that you're giving them?
Yeah.
And so for me, taking that into account, it kind of has removed any nervousness. Now I'm just strictly focused on, hey, how can I impact people? How can I motivate someone enough to think about something in a new way or make a change? So that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah. So what are your recommendations then when it comes to the authenticity in that? Because for an example, I'll get a message on LinkedIn, and I think the person on the other side is truly trying to communicate value to me.
Okay.
Of like, they're like, hey, I saw we had some shared connections. I do this, you do that. I thought it'd be great to connect. I'd love to help you with XYZ. And so I think that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to communicate the value of their connection to me. But it comes across as a sales pitch, right? It comes across as a sales pitch in sheep's clothing.
Definitely.
So what are some ways that we can get into someone's DMs, but really stand out so that that connection or that message would actually be accepted and read and responded to?
It's interesting. I just posted about this, I think like about a week or two ago, where a young lady messaged me on LinkedIn. And I had never met her, didn't know who she was, but she was a great example of a great connection because she was just looking for overall advice and insight into a specific company, a specific area. She was also in marketing. And so what she did was she actually messaged me, had first connected with someone that I knew. So she mentioned that she had connected with someone that I knew and that they referred her to chat with me. But she had done her homework, knew who I was. She kind of was very specific. So it was like a short, concise note, which showed her true intention. And so I connected with her and we spoke maybe for like about 30 minutes. But what was awesome about it was she actually emailed me, I'm not sure if it was a couple of hours later or a day later, with a $5 gift certificate from Starbucks for a coffee.
Nice. Okay.
How cool is that? And so it was something simple, unexpected, but I'm like, when I went to get my coffee days later, I thought of her because I was like, wow, that was something that, just as a nice thank you for connecting with her. So I think that's a great way of, I'm a fan of people are busy. I'm a fan of just being who you are, state what your intention is, be short, concise, but also do your homework, right? I don't think that any of us have any excuse. If someone else is on LinkedIn and you're trying to reach out to them or on Facebook, they have information on that platform about themselves, right? So take the time to educate yourself on a little bit of who they are so that the intent of you connecting with them is a little bit more genuine, authentic, and purposeful. I think that's a great way to approach it.
Right. Well, and she, even further in the gift that she gave you, showed that she did her research because she knew you love coffee.
Exactly. No, it was amazing. It was great. Yeah. And so I posted about that actually. And it's funny because I got a lot of responses from people like, oh my God, thank you for posting those points, because some people don't know, right? And we are living in a virtual world where if you never used LinkedIn before, I think I heard some crazy stat of how much, LinkedIn, whether it's content and whether it's people interacting with each other on LinkedIn, has risen over the last year. It's incredible.
Right. Well, and that further speaks to now we're having to compete with everyone too, right?
Yes.
Like if you weren't on LinkedIn before the pandemic, now you're trying to rise above the influx of everyone else that just came in and started a profile.
Correct. Yes.
Which is I mean, we've preached so long, Michelle. You have to have this before something like this happens or before you lose a job. I mean, it's almost the same. You cannot wait to go out and do these things until when you need it. It all starts prior. So,
well, and it's funny. That's the ticket to, I say, being authentic is, don't do it because you need something. You should be doing this as a standard practice,
right.
Connecting with people, right? Showcasing who you are, because, as I've experienced personally in the last 5.5 years, where in 2015, a well-established company decided to make a move to a new city that disrupted a lot of people who,
Yep.
had been at that company for many years. And even in the last year, with everything that's been going on, there's been a lot of disruption. So we're living in a time where you never know when that disruption could hit. Why not get ahead of the game and just be active and engaged, especially if you're passionate about an industry or what you do? Stay engaged, right? There's a lot of amazing people you can make connections with. And so it's important to build that authentic connection before. And if you do need it in the future, it'll be there versus you trying to go after it.
Right.
So we have a question on Facebook. They're saying, good morning. And then there's a question from Joe saying, what inspired you to write a book and become a speaker?
Ooh. So what inspired me to write a book and become a speaker and essentially a trainer, what I do now, was a question 5.5 years ago by a couple of young people that I was talking to. And they had some questions about, how to grow in their career, how to grow in the company. And literally one of the girls commented and said, her exact words were, I don't know what to say or do.
Wow.
And that hit me because I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that don't know what to say or do. And so for me, it was like a light bulb moment, and I went ahead and started researching, and that's where I decided, you know what, it might be helpful and it might be valuable to a lot of people to figure out, well, how do I, look for the answers to these questions in my career? How do I grow in my current career? How do I maybe pursue a new opportunity? How do I pivot completely? And so doing that research is what led me to feel like I can contribute in a valuable manner to a lot of the questions that people have today, especially during this time.
Yeah, no, that's great. So some of the things that you wanted to talk about too, which I feel like you've really brought home, is helping others accomplish their goals, which is, I feel like, really ties back into what you said earlier with success, and success has a different definition for everyone. So how do you do that with the changes in, again, the way we live, the way we work, the way we're trying to connect, the way we're trying to balance the fact that we're on a Zoom call and trying to do a conference and, gain information. And then we're dealing with fatigue and burnout, right? There's no separation between morning and night.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just, we're working from home the whole time. So how do you help others do that? And to the question that you received, even identify what that success is, because I feel like the key caveat there is we tried to create the definition of success and our goals based on what others think we should do.
Yes, and that right there is the epitome of why people struggle, right? Mm-hmm. And I also tell people where, when that question arises in your head, what should I do next? I'm feeling confused. The first thing that I instruct people to do is you got to find a way to get rid of the noise. There is a lot of noise out there between social media, the news, other people, influential people maybe in your family and your close friends. Yeah. Everyone's doing something and everyone's got noise to bring to the table. But sometimes, you have to kind of take space and get rid of that noise to figure out what's in your best interest. So what does success mean to you? It might not mean, you might have the fancy title or the fancy responsibilities, but you know what? You've had that for a while. Maybe you're not fulfilled anymore. So maybe success now means something completely different. Mm-hmm. And that's another important point to make. Your definition of success is going to change throughout the trajectory of your career, right? And your priorities. And so it's okay. And I think it's very important for people to reconnect with themselves every once in a while to find out, well, is this making me happy? What is it that I really enjoy doing? But you've got to do that without the noise, because the noise will indirectly or directly influence you. And that's where people tend to go wrong. And so I think it's extremely, extremely important to figure out how to remove the noise.
Yeah. Do you have best practices that you recommend for someone to do this? Because like my mind goes back to the, which I love Taylor Swift documentary that was on Netflix.
Yes.
And she was like, all this stuff was happening and I just disappeared.
Yes.
And then she came back and like, I don't remember if it was 89 or Reputation, but anyway, she like disappeared for a year. No one heard from her. And then the next thing you know, she's like back and it's amazing. And she, produces this award-winning album. And I'm like, yeah, but we all can't be Taylor Swift, right? We all can't just disappear for a year to kind of collect everything and then come back out the gate running full speed ahead. So what are some things that we can do in our own realm and world that would allow us to tap into that?
Well, it's interesting. You might not be able to do a year, but actually someone who I love and is an Atlanta native recently did that. Sarah Blakely went away for a full week by herself. Now, she I think it was the week before her 50th birthday.
Is this where she ate fries with every meal?
Yes.
Okay.
But she talked about that of, she connected obviously with her kids throughout the trip, but spending time alone with a book, whether it's a blank notebook, to literally gather your thoughts. You could do that for a week. I personally have done that a couple of times, 2 or 3 days by yourself, but just, again, without the noise, just to sit there and think and ask yourself like some real questions. And some of those, one of the things that I talk about is sometimes we get so worried about, asking other people questions or having honest conversations with others, which is great. But what about the honest conversations with ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's where, you have to take the time to ask those tough questions and truly answer it. If no one's around you, you have the ability to truly answer it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Isaac, I feel like you're tapping it. I see 3 comments, but I don't see the 3rd comment. So what do we have?
They're just saying good morning, good morning.
Awesome.
Good morning.
Well, I heard about
we have some other people on Instagram too. You have Kristen Lee and Yvel Riches on Instagram. So
good morning. It's funny because I heard that story. Conference, the Jamie Lee Kerma, I believe is her name, that created
I was there. I attended as well. Yes, that's a great book. I just read it, by the way.
Okay, awesome. It's on my list. I feel like I have a lot on my list, but I did put that one on. But same thing. I was bopping in and out of that conference. I guess it was last Monday or something like that. And I heard Sarah Blakely. She was like, I had salad and French fries with every meal. And she it just kind of got away for a week. And she was still working on things, but she was working on the more important things.
Correct.
So, hey, everyone, I'm going to be out next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm going to go to the mountains.
Yeah.
Where internet doesn't exist.
Nice. No, that's great. And we've got to embrace that, right? You don't have to do something big. You don't have to fly anywhere. I mean, you can literally, go anywhere and just embrace that solitude. But yes, take the time to ask yourself questions, because that's one thing too. And it's interesting. I was just writing, I think it was a blog post or something about this. Questions are going to come up. I think that we're living in a world now where we assume you graduate college, right? You identify your career and you stay in that career and you just climb to the top.
100%.
That is totally not the case anymore.
Yep.
And so questions are going to come out in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s. And so it's important to always be comfortable with taking a step back and reconnecting with, okay, who are you now? At this time, what are your goals? What are your priorities? And then work from there, because those questions you should never stop asking yourself those questions.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm even thinking too, if you can't get away, setting up a place in your home or your apartment, wherever you are, that's just your thinking space. I have one of those. It's this nice little long chair. I've got a comfy blanket and a pillow and a lamp, and that's where I go, where I read, and if I just want to think, and it's right by the window, and it's just, it's right in our own home, but it's this beautiful little nook kind of that's my own. And even if I just go there for 15 minutes and give my brain a break and read, it's pretty amazing.
No, it is. People, there's a lot of power in doing that. And sometimes, like I said, it's so important to just get comfortable with, and on a routine basis of just sitting by yourself and just doing whatever it is you need to do, whether it's meditation, like you said, read, just sit there and just not do anything and stare out into space.
Yes.
That's helpful. But we have to get more comfortable with doing that.
I love it. I love it. Well, Michelle, if our listeners want to get in contact with you, sign up for your book when it's coming out.
Yes.
How do they find out more about you and connect with you?
Sure. So you can connect with me on my website. I'm also pretty active on Instagram and then also LinkedIn as well. So you can connect with me there. And then I've got a special secret coming out soon for people that want to answer some of those questions about their career. So I've been working on a big project that I'll announce soon.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to stay tuned to that. I'll definitely be checking in. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate having you on Whitney in the Wild.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And to all of you out there listening, catch us again right here, same place, same time, 8 a.m. for a new show, a new edition of The Jungle. We'll see you then.